Diverse elements which can create disharmony among fathers and sons have filled a number of indigestible books. In the case of Coach Press Maravich and his son Pete, the drumbeat dribble of a basketball creates a tempo to which they can march in step. There are, of course, times when any son listening to his father has the look of a turtle in shock. But for 16 years, the Maraviches have worked, sometimes abrasively but always closely, on Pete's game.
He was so much the instrument of his father's desire that there wasn't much to Pete himself. I think it emptied him of personality. I once visited his apartment, and it looked like a decorator's showroom. It was the most unpersonal kind of place, full of stainless steel furniture and non-objective paintings. It depressed me just to look around.
I remember seeing him in 1970 after his senior year at LSU. He came to Cutcher's Country Club in upstate New York, where they used to hold a basketball game every summer. Some little kid at the clinic was watching him, and he came up to Press Maravich afterward, and he said, "How long did it take Pete to learn how to do that?" And Press said, "All his life." And the kid said, "Oh, well, I don't have that much time."
I played 6 to 10 hours a day, and I was really a basketball android. That's the only thing I was committed to. I was totally dedicated and possessed by basketball. There was nothing else in my life.
One time he came to practice during the Christmas holidays and had the side of his face, it was all black and blue, and said, "You know, Pete, what happened to you?" And he said he walked in the house and had beer on his breath, and Press just popped him on the spot. And I don't know that it was as much because of drinking the beer as much as he wasn't being true to, quote, the game, the basketball.
When I was a sophomore, he was diagramming a play on the floor, and I was looking at this play, and I just couldn't see it working. This isn't going to work. He jumped up and hit me across the head and said, "Look, I'm the coach. You're the player. You listen to me." So in front of 11,000 people, I was sort of embarrassed at this, and so I didn't say much, and we went out, and it turned out to win the ball game for us. So ever since that time, I've considered just been very exciting for me to play for him, and I have no regrets.
If I was going to criticize Coach Maravich for anything in the world, it'd be for loving his son too much. And that's as good a criticism as you give somebody.
They had some differences, but he loved his daddy from the bottom of his heart. He respected his father.
Press was not only his father, Press was his coach. The guy that taught him how to bounce the ball between his legs and gave him all those impossible drills as a 6-year-old. He loved Press.
They had all these different conflicting relationships, and then Pete talked about how in the last year of Press's life, Pete would give him his shots, Pete would carry him to bed.
Pete thought that was very much the way that Press used to carry him and take him to basketball camps or take him home after a game.
Their roles just completely reversed, and through that, there was this incredible, intense relationship that left such a vivid image in Pete's mind.
Pete delivered the eulogy, 2 hours, just talking about his father and himself and life after death and what this would mean, and he was spellbinding.
My dad was my hero. I wouldn't be in the position I am today if it hadn't been for my father.
He bent over and told his dad, he said, "I'll see you soon." Pete knew that he would see his dad again.
Up next, a life well lived and a legacy that will stay with us forever.
He was an extraordinary interview subject. What you want in a good interview is someone who has passion and who can laugh at themselves a little, and Pete had that ability. I mean, he could, if he were describing a play, he could put you on the floor. But he was a true born again. He had it in his heart. He deeply believed, he willingly, openly discussed his earlier life. But I had great respect for Pete. I really liked him. We really got along.
He had started complaining about how tired he was all the time. And that wasn't like him. I know he didn't look good. His coloring was changing, and he had lost weight. But he was the type that didn't like to go to doctors.
I get a package, and I open a package, and it's a Bible. I'm not the most religious person in the world, and my name is imprinted, a beautiful leather embossed Bible. And I open a Bible, and there's a long handwritten thing to me on the first page from Pete. You know, dear Larry, I hope this gives you inspiration as it has for me. And as I'm reading this, they announce a sports bulletin.
An American original died today, Pistol Pete Maravich. He was college basketball's all-time scoring champion and later a professional star. He died today during a pickup basketball game at a church in Pasadena, California. A heart attack is suspected.
Died playing the game he loved.
When they did an autopsy to find out why he collapsed on his basketball court, they found out that he was missing his right coronary artery. Born with it that way. A defective heart, basically half his heart wouldn't bump. I mean, it's almost stunning because here's a guy that ran his whole life, unlike Secretariat, who when they opened up his heart, he had an enlarged heart. His heart was bigger. He basically had a bigger engine than the horses he was running against. Pete had a smaller heart, but stronger in some ways.
He did not leave this earth not sure of himself and not satisfied with himself. He saw the light, and he was happy. He was at peace.
From childhood, Pete Maravich dedicated his life to basketball, and the results were historic. His college scoring records, the ones he set with uncommon flair, will likely stand forever, equaled only by his professional career, in which he was chosen as one of the top 50 players in the history of the NBA.
You can be the greatest on the face of the earth. That's something if you want to do that bad enough. They still talk about the wraparound behind the back pass, and something will happen to say, my God, he looks like Maravich. His legacy will live forever.
He broke the molds. He didn't do it the way people had always been taught. He's like a guy who wins the Nobel Prize for some discovery he made 30 years ago. Well, Pete was that much of a revolutionary for the sport of basketball, but I don't think people realized it at the time.
He added something to the NBA that the NBA was lacking at a time when the game was not very popular.
His life was shortened. He really had a full life. And there's a legacy there. He crammed 100 years of life in 40 years. And when you look back and you examine those 40 years, there's something there for everybody to benefit from.
You got to hit it, bang it, rock it, put it in the pocket. Hit it, bang it, rock it, put it in the pocket. I said, hit it, bang it, rock it, put it in the pocket. Hit it, bang it, rock it, put it in the pocket. Yeah, yeah.
In association with CBS Sports, this has been an SFX Black Canyon production.